So, what I wanted to talk about now was where I think the industry is, where I think the industry is going, and how we got there. So, um, like most people my age group, and even before that, um, I saw a Bruce Lee movie, and so then I wanted to be a to take martial arts lessons. So at that time, also remember there was Bruce Lee movies, and then there was all the Shaw Brothers kung fu movies. That was followed by Chuck Norris movies, and then Jean Claude Van Damme movies, and Steven Seagal movies. And so media definitely does affect the martial arts industry. Um, a lot of karate people will tell you that when the Karate Kid came out, there was a surge in children's enrollments. Um, didn't bring back the adults, but I'm going to get there in a second. But in other words, there was a lot of movies that made people interested in Asian martial arts. And also, initially, there was this sort of air of mysticism about it. And so we believe that these masters had like secret knowledge. I always talking about the fact that I figure out now that I'm actually older now than my first martial arts teacher, Punky Kim, was when I joined the gym. But I thought he was this ancient, wise master that had all these secrets. And now I think about, well, he was a guy about 10 years younger than I am now who, had kids and had bills and, was a regular person. But we used to believe that there was secrets. The reason you wanted to get a black belt is you thought there was going to be a secret when you got to black belt. So to a certain extent, people used to put up with things in martial arts because they were desperate to get this, what they thought was secret knowledge. But over time, one, there was less media pushing people into martial arts, traditional martial arts. I mean, in other words, after maybe Steven Seagal movies, I don't think there were really any like sort of classical martial arts movies. And they even started to change because, for example, Bruce Lee ushered in a bunch of Shaw Brothers movies, which were really very traditional kung fu movies. Chuck Norris movies were kind of like set in modern times. He was a sheriff, he was a detective, he was a special military forces guy. Jean Claude Van Damme movies, the same thing. So you got out of period pieces, you got into more modern movies. But there was less media pushing people into traditional martial arts programs. There was less belief in mysticism. And then MMA came along, 1993 is the first UFC. Started picking up, in the 90s. I don't think it has the effect that people think it does. And one of the examples I give is that there was a very successful martial arts chain. I never name names when I do this stuff, but there's a very, very successful chain of martial arts schools that was traditional based that changed their emphasis to trying to be an MMA gym, and thought that if they got a bunch of MMA fighters and they got them on big shows and everything, that would change their business. They were right. It changed their business, but it changed it in a negative way. They were very successful. They were making a lot of money. They had a lot of locations, and they suffered significant setbacks by changing their focus. So I don't think MMA people don't want to be MMA fighters. But by the same token, what's going to bring them to this? And well, they see the UFC. And in UFC, they'll talk about things like Muay Thai and they'll talk about jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. But, also, they talk about jiu-jitsu, but a lot of people go to the jiu-jitsu class and they see a bunch of 20-something-year-old guys rolling around on the ground. It's not necessarily what they're interested in. But there's changes. And I think as people became less enamored with the mysticism of it, they didn't want to do things associated with traditional martial arts. Uniforms, belts, foreign languages, things like that. And they wanted to do stuff that they could see more quickly the practical application of. And not just for fighting, but I mean for other things also. I'm going to get there in a second. But the other thing also that I think people underestimate is that The entire martial arts industry, the people that were consulting people on how to run your business successfully, focused around children. Um, the strategies for children are very successful to run successful children's programs. And there's a lot of people making money doing children's programs. But you can't treat adults like you treat children. So there's a lot of issues going on. So there was this kind of lull, and there was this kind of questioning. And along came this idea of fitness, because martial arts are good for fitness. And my observation was this: if you went into a traditional martial arts school the way it was traditionally organized, of course there's fitness. You're going to get into shape doing martial arts. But you don't know what class you're walking into depending on the day and the week. So you might walk into a class that's all basics and it's a really good workout and you're learning how to do kicks and punches, and people are going to like that. But you might walk into a class where they're doing forms that week. They're doing kata, they're doing hand sets, whatever you want to call it. And some people like that, and some people definitely don't. And some people question as the mysticism wears off, question the utility of doing forms. Some people want to do sparring. They enjoy it. And some people absolutely are frightened and freaked out by it and don't want to do it. And so if you walk into a class and it's a sparring class, you kind of want to do martial arts, but you kind of don't want to do things you don't want to do. So that was one of the challenges. But people realized that people did want fitness. And there started to be this trend where people were talking about how kickboxing was good for fitness. It was in the magazines, again, going back to how the media influences it. A lot of women's health magazines started talking about kickboxing, and then Muay Thai eventually. So I get people that sign up for Muay Thai thinking it's a fitness class, and it's not. It's a different thing. But the thing is, when people saw that, the aha moment, especially in the franchise that I used to belong to, and again, I'm not naming any names, they tried to turn it from being a class using martial arts for fitness to being a fitness business and competing with all the other giant fitness businesses. And I thought it was a mistake. I think the end result, which is the whole thing falling apart, is classic evidence that it's a mistake. You can't. John Taffer, I use him a lot, and I believe honestly, follow people that are successful, especially people that are successful in business, and listen to what they say, even if you don't think it's your industry. John Taffer, it's a bar business. What does that have to do with me? It has a lot to do with you. He says in one of his most famous episodes that people that try to copy something are never as successful as the original product. And I point out a great example of this, which is that, Billy Blanks came along and he was one of the first people to say, let's take martial arts and make it like a fitness thing. So he made Taibo, right? Or Taibo, or whatever the hell he called it. And people tried to copy him. The people that tried to copy him were not successful. And in fact, to get this program done as a commercial entity, Billy Blanks didn't actually own most of it. And so later on, he tried to relaunch himself, owning it more for himself. And even though he was the original person and the original product, when he relaunched it as a second project, copying his original project, he was not as successful at copying. So again, if you're trying to copy Orange Theory or Soul Cycle or any of these other high-end and big money, so they have big money for resources to be a quote-unquote fitness business, you're competing in the wrong market. I would say people want to do martial arts. People see their fitness benefits. And most people don't come for just one benefit. Even if that's what they tell you, it's not true. People come to a martial arts class hoping to learn some self-defense, even though they may not want to do the real training that you would really need for self-defense, but they want to kind of think they're doing self-defense. So they think if they're doing kicks and punches and hitting a bag, they're doing something for self-defense. And in a way they are, in a way they're not. That's another discussion entirely. But they come for the fitness, they come for the self-defense, they come for the uniqueness of it's a more interesting workout than lifting weights in the gym or taking an aerobics class. And they come for the community to make friends. Excuse me. And you can offer that program and sign those people up. Now, we still use the term for external marketing, fitness, kickboxing, but we consider the class that we put them into level one foundations. We don't call it fitness kickboxing, we call it fitness and technique. And I made a big deal out of that because we're doing conditioning, so it does have a fitness element. Obviously, it'll get you in shape, but we're teaching you real technique. The other thing I didn't like about the franchise that I used to belong to as it fell apart was the idea was that, well, since we're doing fitness, it's not really important that we do real technique, water it down, wrong technique. Also, the idea that if you're really setting yourself up as a fitness business, right? Uh, um, Martial arts instructors, look at yourself in the mirror, especially if you're like me and you're over 50. Um, you may not be in horrible shape, but none of us are probably 13, 12% body fat. We don't have the beautiful young hair that we used to have. So what happened was, well, if you're competing in the fitness market where image is everything, they started hiring young kids to teach the classes, but the young kids don't have the technical knowledge. And so it stops being martial arts and it becomes like a quote unquote kickboxing class in the gym. Be who you are. Be a martial arts instructor. Give them a great workout, and you can do that. Even if you're like me, and I'm not svelte by any stretch of the imagination. I have a few extra pounds here and there, like everybody at my age does. But I can still make you work out. But I'm doing a martial arts class, fitness. And the other thing that makes it work is it's a foundations class, so they work with each other doing glove work, which is kind of like partner work, but it's not sparring work. There's no sparring. Nobody hits them. No one kicks them. No one picks them up and throws them down on the ground. It's a lot of, we do like a guided shadow boxing to warm people up. We have, like I said, partner work where they're hitting the gloves, which is martial arts-y, and people like that, but it's not a contact class. They're hooking into the glove. They're not hooking your head, and that makes a huge difference. Then they have bags, and people love bags. People love hitting things. They love kicking shields also, and they love hitting tie pads, and they love hitting focus mitts. And those things are all really essential for real martial arts, but you're keeping the program so that if a woman responds to fitness kickboxing, I want to do martial arts and I want to work out and I don't want to be hit, I don't want to spar, I don't want to be a fighter, they can do that. And that same class can then feed your contact classes. The way I do things is I have like the foundations class, which is based around what I call modern training, meaning like a kickboxing kind of format. I have a class which, again, you can call it Sanda, you can call it Muay Thai. Marketing wise, it's easier to market as Muay Thai and then explain to people, well, some of it's Muay Thai and some of it's Sanda and what's the difference. And really, if you want to do Muay Thai, then what you're talking about is doing what works as a business in the stadiums of Thailand. It's not a martial art like you think it is. It's not about being the best fighter. A lot of it is about, it's a business in Thailand. They're professional athletes. They do things that win them matches. And then I'm going to show you more of I use this term a lot. I'm giving you a martial arts education. I'm giving you a well-rounded martial arts education. And so part of that means learning kicks, punches, knees, elbows, like in Thai boxing, learning to clinch both Thai style and Sanda style. It means a lot of different things. But again, I have sort of a foundations class, which can also serve as a fitness program. So externally, it's marketed as fitness kickboxing. Muay Thai / Sanda, which is modern training. They're still wearing gloves. They're still doing a boxing, kickboxing kind of structure. And then I have my Kung Fu class, which I say is advanced. Now, you have to remember something. Again, also, like, the difference between 35, 40 years ago and now is 35, 40 years ago when you started training, you did what you were told to do and you thought, well, I have to do this because I want to get those secrets and this is going to lead to something. People are much more difficult, are not going to just do what you tell them to do. They're going to question you. If you train people traditionally, like for example, in my system Llama, where I'm going to have them doing a side stance and wheeling body and, punches in place and stuff like that, I wouldn't have the big school I have. The thing about a quote unquote fitness class or a foundations class or a fitness and technique class is you can put somebody in a kickboxing kind of stance, show them jab cross, show them a front kick, show them a round kick, show them a knee, maybe show them an elbow. And people can walk out of that first class feeling like they learned something and feeling like they achieved something. People get very confused in Kung Fu classes. Now, once they've taken some foundations classes, maybe taken a couple of Muay Thai / Sanda classes, and then you put them in a Kung Fu class, you go, well, we're doing wheeling body because what this is you know how everything is about hips and shoulders, hips and shoulders, and hips and shoulders. Turn into your jab, turn into your cross, turn into your hook, turn into your uppercut. This is training. And one of the things I stress a lot is that traditional martial arts, and I always talk from Kung Fu because that's my perspective, but I do have a background in Korean martial arts. It's true of Korean martial arts. I did some Japanese martial arts. It's true of Japanese martial arts, which is that some traditional training is not how you would see it in a fight. It is body training, body awareness, body conditioning, attribute training, and conceptual training that then becomes fighting. But again, all that stuff that sounds good, especially to us, the martial artist, is mind numbing, confusing, frustrating for the average student. So you go like, listen, when we're doing side stance and we're doing stuff like Being Chun, where we're extending our arms out like they're the wings of birds and stuff like that. No, you're not going to fight with your hands down. You're not going to fight in a side stance. You're not going to fight in exactly a cat stance or a Diuma hanging stance. These are conceptual things. But once they already have some more immediately available martial arts stuff, it works. I do think, like I said, MMA people attribute too much to the changes in the community. I can tell you that, again, people don't like being treated like kids. They're not into the Oriental mysticism anymore. So, for example, when you put somebody in a fitness kickboxing class, they can wear anything they want. And I remember even when we had a Kung Fu school a very, very, very long time ago, we had a client. She was a very nice woman, but she was also an executive in a major, major corporation, which, again, we never name names. So she had a lot of disposable income. She paid for her classes. She paid for her children. She paid for personal training. And one day she turned to me and said, the thing that I like the most as a woman is that I don't have to wear an uncomfortable or an unflattering martial arts uniform. I can wear what I feel comfortable working out in. Now, I know some of you are going to go crazy over that because you have a martial arts uniform. And again, in my Kung Fu classes, I also have a uniform. We wear the jacket. And in my Muay Thai Sanda classes, we have a kind of uniform everybody wears, the body shield. Now, there's several reasons for I do that, but one of the reasons is look and for the idea that it's not a pickup football game, it's a martial arts class. But I think you can bring people in a more relaxed environment. Don't expect them to know foreign languages. Don't expect them to take belt tests. I mean, I'm going to talk about belts and the business of it in a future episode, I think. But right now what I'm talking about is make your life easier, not more difficult. But I also think that people are starting to look for martial arts again. They'll come in and tell, and again, when we start doing sales, I guess I'll go into this. I'll say, well, what brought you here? Was it fitness? Did you want to learn martial arts? Did you want to learn self-defense? And not starting, it's been for a long time, but it's a trend. People more and more saying, well, I always wanted to do martial arts. I always wanted to learn some self-defense, but I also want to work out. So don't make yourself a fitness business and compete with the Soul Cycles and the Orange Theory and all these other things that you see people doing now. Don't do that. Be a martial arts school that offers a class that's friendly to people that want to do fitness. Pardon me. So, again, you're a Muay Thai gym. Okay, have a basic Muay Thai class that doesn't have the contact in it. You're a Kung Fu gym. Have a basics class that focuses on what we used to call the line drills, and also have them hit some pads and hit some bags. And don't tell me that Kung Fu people can't hit bags and hit pads. It's ridiculous. Of course you can. Have a class that is low commitment, but high on reward and benefits and enjoyment. And that's an important part of making people. They talk about in the martial arts all the time is that you have to have repetition for skill. So you have to hide the repetition so your classes don't become overwhelming and boring. I would say have multiple levels, bring people in. As a business, if you want to upsell it, I don't really upsell. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I believe that if someone comes in and they think they're paying for instruction, to then say, aha, but if you want the whole, if you come in to buy a loaf of bread and I say to you, it's $15 and you give me $15 and I hand you the two ends and I go, oh, if you want the middle part of the bread, it's another $15. And then I give you half of that middle. I go, well, if you want the whole loaf of bread, then it's another $25. I kind of feel people do that with the martial arts industry. Now, there is a certain argument for that. For example, if I'm doing a kickboxing program, I don't have an upgrade from the basics to the Muay Thai class, but I can have an upgrade into the Kung Fu because it's it's more material. It's a different kind of program. Um, Belt testing, things like that, and some of this, honestly, in the franchise that I used to belong in, to the best part when it was really the best was they said that they didn't do anything, and it's true. At that point, they didn't do anything without actually testing it out. And so the people running it at the time when it was working were running a school, so they would have an idea, they would test out the idea, and then they would say it worked or it didn't work. And I'll be honest with you, I sometimes test things myself, so I won't. And also, I have this big thing that came up. It came up again, but it's always been a thing. I tell people very straight about things that I'm not good at, things that I don't do. I don't build websites. I'm not going to do marketing for you. I'm not going to try to sell you those services. And if I'm wrong, I will tell you I'm wrong. And if I tried something and it didn't work, I will tell you it didn't work. But what I'm telling you is that the industry, especially if you're one of those people that really didn't like MMA and or was somewhat uncomfortable with the fitness aspect, the good news is the industry is going back in your direction. Maybe not all the way back where, everybody is wearing a white uniform and belts and they're paying for stripes on belts and everybody's doing a belt test and everybody's learning their forms and everything. Maybe not, but there is certainly an opportunity to teach real martial arts to people and make it a successful business. So what I'm going to say to you guys in the next couple of days is start thinking about what is it that you want to teach and why is it that you want to teach it? And how much are you willing to be flexible and make compromises? How flexible are you? And, I use the kind of silly example, but it's true. If you decided, like, I love VHS tapes and I want to sell VHS tapes, nothing wrong with loving VHS tapes and having a VHS machine and having a collection of tapes. But reality is, as far as a business, it's probably not going to be a successful business. So if you tell me that there's certain things you want to do, I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but I'm going to tell you your chances of being successful in it are going to be less or maybe not at all. But I think for a lot of people, if you're somewhat flexible, there's good news. As always, in the group here, if you have questions, I encourage you to put them up. People are always shy. I don't know why that is, but put them up. Please do put them up. And thank you again, as always, for listening to me. And hopefully you'll put some questions up.